Coming up today, the government issues its first ever special disaster zone designation for the southeastern city of Gwangju, which was rocked last week by the strongest earthquake on record to hit Korea. President Park Geun-hye admits dialogue with North Korea is no longer an option after the regime's latest round of nuclear and missile provocations. Plus, lawmakers will quiz government officials for a fourth and final day on the educational and social issues affecting the nation. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Friday, September 23rd here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, the government has designated the southeastern city of Gwangju as a special disaster zone after the recent earthquakes in that area. The declaration came as experts warned tremors could continue for a while. Hwang Ho-jun starts us off.
10 days after the first earthquake jolted Gwangju, the Korean government on Thursday designated the city a special disaster zone, making it eligible for emergency relief and additional financial support from the central government. The designation was made after the government dispatched a joint inspection team to assess the damage done to the city. Under the current guidelines, damage caused by natural or man-made disasters must exceed $6.6 million for a region to be declared a disaster zone. The government estimates Gwangju's damage to be about $7.6 million. With the disaster zone declared, about $8,000 will be given to those who completely lost their homes, $4,000 in case of partial destruction, and about $900 for non-structural damage. The government said it will form an emergency support team comprising the Public Safety Ministry and the Health Ministry to manage the relief efforts systematically, while also providing psychological treatment for residents in Gwangju. The Korean Meteorological Administration said an aftershock exceeding the 5.8 magnitude of the first quake is unlikely, but moderate tremors are likely to continue, possibly for months. Also, amid criticism of the text message alert system, which failed to immediately reach residents near the affected area, the KMA vowed to improve it by increasing the number of seismic monitoring stations over the next 2 years from the current 206 to 315. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has expressed disappointment that dialogue with North Korea is probably no longer an option, especially following its latest string of provocations. The South Korean leader also suggested Seoul needs to take a harder line with the North. Song Ji-sun tells us more.
President Park said the worst scenario possible, that North Korea, with its advanced nuclear and missile capabilities, could carry out any type of provocation, is becoming a reality. She also predicted that Pyongyang will no longer show for denuclearization talks. President Park said that the money previously given to North Korea to engage in dialogue has been funneled into its nuclear program and condemned the North's continued efforts to develop weapons of mass destruction, whilst people are suffering from some of the worst flood damage in years.
이제 북한은 더 이상 핵 포기를 위한 대화의 장에 나오지 않을 것이며 핵과 미사일 등의 도발은 더욱 심화될 것이라고 생각합니다. 그래서 정부는 우선 유엔 안보리에서 북한의 핵 포기를 실질적으로 강제할 수 있는 국제사회의 새롭고 강력한 제재 도출에 최선을 다하면서 이와 별도로 여러 나라들과 함께 대북 압박을 위해 필요한 독자적 조치도 취해 나갈 것입니다.
Vying to do all she can to curb the regime's obsession with its nuclear program, President Park also pledged to strengthen the South Korea-U.S. alliance to protect the nation, including deploying the U.S. missile defense system THAAD in South Korea and Washington's nuclear umbrella. President Park also called for thorough monitoring and measures to mitigate the potential impact on the South Korean economy of such uncertainties as an additional provocation from North Korea and a possible rate hike in December by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
North Korea has lashed out over the deployment of US B-1B bombers to the south. Pyongyang on Thursday vowed to turn Seoul into a, quote, sea of fire if it perceives an attack. Connie Kim has more.
North Korea has lashed out at Washington for sending its supersonic bombers earlier this week for flyovers near the inter-Korean military demarcation line. The spokesman for the Supreme Command of the North's military on Thursday threatened to turn Seoul to ashes with its nuclear weapons, and going a step further, threatened to annihilate Guam, where the American B-1B bombers are based. North Korea's rhetoric continued in its media outlet, Maeri. It dismissed South Korea's recent warning that it would wipe Pyongyang off the map if it showed the lightest sign of actually using its nuclear weapons. The regime called the South Korean government's stance foolish and warned Pyongyang instead would turn Seoul into a, quote, sea of fire on any sign of an attack. Pyongyang has maintained that its development of nuclear weapons is a self-defense measure meant to protect the region from the U.S. South Korea's military flatly dismissed the regime's belligerent rhetoric.
There's no value in commenting on remarks from an internet propaganda outlet. With respect to this typical behavior by the North, the South Korean military continues to strengthen its surveillance.
As the North continues to isolate itself from the international community with its provocations, the top nuclear envoys of South Korea and China have met in Beijing for the first time since Pyongyang's nuclear test earlier this month. Although details of the talks have not been revealed, the two are expected to have discussed narrowing their differences on ways to respond to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Seoul and Washington have called for stronger measures to pressure the North into denuclearizing, but Beijing remains cautious about any sanctions that could threaten the North Korean regime's survival. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea's test of a new rocket engine this week demonstrates that Pyongyang could potentially send unmanned probes to the moon. This is according to a US missile expert in an article carried on the US-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North. John Schilling, a top aerospace engineer with expertise on the North's missile programs, said even though the new engine isn't right for intercontinental ballistic missiles, the North has already demonstrated it can build large rockets using both solid and high-energy liquid propellants. He said the new engine is too big and too powerful for use in the ICBMs the North has been developing, such as the KN-08 and the KN-14 road mobile missiles. But he added the new engine could be used in rockets for outer space missions. He said the world should start thinking about how to live with a North that has such capabilities. Coming back to domestic politics now, and lawmakers bombarded government officials with economic-related questions on Thursday. It was day 3 of a 4-day parliamentary Q&A session. Shin Se-min with the details.
Government officials face questions about their ongoing restructuring efforts in the shipping and shipbuilding industries as the National Assembly's 4-day interpellation session continued on Thursday. A lot of the intense questioning was focused on how the government has so far dealt with the financially troubled Hanjin Shipping. Korea's finance minister said that while it is heartbreaking to see the country's biggest shipper go under court receivership, it's not fair to put the burden on taxpayers. In addition, Yu and Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn both said the government would do all it can to minimize the fallout from the logistical disruptions that are sure to come.
Already too much taxpayer money has been injected into a troubled shipping company. The government will work to implement emergency measures, including the deployment of extra cargo ships from Hyundai Merchant Marine.
Meanwhile, lawmakers from the country's 3 main rival parties had differing views on whether to increase the corporate tax and how effective it would be in revitalizing the economy. Opposition party lawmakers said the corporate tax should be increased, while ruling party lawmakers are opposed to the idea, saying it could lead to an exodus of local firms, making it difficult to attract direct foreign investment. The 4-day parliamentary Q&A session will wrap up on Friday with educational and social issues topping the agenda. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
More help is on the way for Korea's ailing shipping giant Hanjin, the state-run Korea Development Bank, has decided to give the cash-strapped container carrier tens of millions of dollars in the form of a loan. Lee Min-young has the details.
The state-run Korea Development Bank, the ailing shipbuilder's main creditor, has decided to lend Hanjin an additional 50 billion won, or about $45 million, to help the company unload its cargo now stranded for weeks in ports around the world. The decision comes a day after Hanjin's biggest shareholder, Korean Air, agreed to lend the shipper about $54 million. KDB, like Korean Air, will accept Hanjin Shipping's accounts receivables as collateral, but the bank said its loan will take priority over Korean Air's claim. The emergency fund will be used solely to address cargo delays. Additionally, the KDB loan will be offered only after the shipping firm exhausts all of the 110 billion won, or $99 million it's expected to get from its parent firm and largest shareholders, Hanjin Group and Korean Air. The bank said it expects the approval process for the loan to be completed as early as this week. Following the news, shares of Hanjin Shipping on the local stock market surged by the daily limit of 30%. However, the firm isn't out of the woods yet.
Usually, as soon as a ship unloads cargo, it should be returned immediately to its owner. However, with the delay in the overall cargo work making it difficult to unload shipments, unnecessary costs are mounting.
Due to delays in cargo work, the court estimates unloading charges to have already risen to 270 billion won, or $245 million. Since Hanjin was put under receivership, there are also leases on ships and fuel costs piling up more than $2 million a day, and outstanding charter freight bills of about $36 million. The court has demanded swift measures to solve the cargo operations problem, saying that otherwise it would have no choice but rule against the company's revival. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Now we have some exciting news for people living in the South Korean capital, because the city of Seoul has unveiled a mega construction project that will create an underground pedestrian-exclusive space below the heart of the Korean capital. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The Seoul government announced on Thursday that an underground space will be built in the capital city by 2025, in a project that follows the city's initiative to create more space for residents to enjoy cultural activities. Book cafes and exhibitions of cultural and historical relics will be part of the 31,000 square meter underground city. The Seoul metropolitan government is spearheading the project in cooperation with privately run Seoul Shinmun and the government of Singapore Investment Corporation. The underground city will also feature a 4.5-kilometer long pedestrian pathway that is projected to connect at least 12 subway train stations and 30 buildings passing through major tourist hubs such as the Seoul City Hall, Cheonggyecheon Stream, Gwanghwamun Square Plaza, and the Dongdaemun History and Cultural Park Station. The underground space is expected to greatly boost the quality of life of the city's residents, as well as enhance the local tourism, culture, and commercial sectors. The Seoul metropolitan government plans to roll out detailed measures early next year to initiate the underground city construction. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
US tech company Yahoo has announced that data associated with at least 500 million user accounts has been stolen. Yahoo says it believes a state-sponsored actor was behind the 2014 data breach, meaning an individual acting on behalf of a government. Yahoo stopped short of singling out a particular country. The account information may have included names, email addresses, telephone numbers and dates of birth, but Yahoo believes it didn't include financial data like bank account numbers and credit card data. Yahoo urges users to change their password and security questions and to review their accounts for suspicious activity. Well, that's all we have for now on this Friday morning here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in. We will be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next bulletin is coming up at 10 a.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.